October 26th, and we are here in front of the Margaret Morton Center. My name is Jamim. I am the Vice President of Bridgeport Generation Now, and I'm here with a group of community leaders to call on the Mayor of Bridgeport, Mayor Joe Ganim, to offer us full transparency in the police chief search. We understand that there was a process that was supposed to include community engagement and community conversations. That process was nixed, and a professional panel of people that are not from our community are making decisions about who our next police chief is. So today we are here asking for full transparency, and we're going to get started and have some distinguished members of our community make public statements and demand that transparency. So our first speaker is going to be the Reverend Anthony Bennett. He's the co-chair of the Congregations Organized for a New Connecticut, and he is the pastor of Mount Airy Baptist Church.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I didn't know I was going to be first. There's a statement, the first shall be last and the last shall be first. So I will go first in this round to reiterate and further undergird our support of Bridgeport Generation Now's letter that was done over the summer. And we reiterate the call for the Mayor Ganim, to open up the process. I was a part of the process several years ago. I've been here 24 years searching for a superintendent, and that process had levels of transparency. When the finalists were decided upon, community meetings were held, and I don't see why we cannot engage in that same process. We have nothing to lose. I believe we have everything to gain. And so I've come here after picking up my grandbaby. I've come here to say this is an important issue. And I hope and pray that Ganim and the Mayor Ganim administration will use wise wisdom and common sense to know the broader you open the process, the greater the results can be. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Bennett. Now we're going to have Kyle Langan, City Council Representative from the 132nd District.
Yeah, we're out here right now. Yes, we're out here. And we know we are joined by many other people here with us. And we know that many of us felt that this process from the beginning was a sham. Many of our neighbors feel that way. We know that many more of our neighbors grew disillusioned when there was a minimal effort for public outreach through our consultant. We know that even more of our neighbors got fed up when, at the last minute, the community committee was scrapped for a private professional committee. And we know that even more of our neighbors cannot believe that after a national search, we have 2 of our own officers and 1 from a hop, skip, and a jump away in New Haven. And we certainly share those frustrations. I certainly share those frustrations, but we're not going to be silenced. We're going to continue to raise our voice. And while I'm talking about raising our voices, November 6th is coming, ladies and gentlemen, so make sure we're getting out and voting, because until we have more than 10% of ourselves and our neighbors showing up and sharing our voice about our city, we're going to have more situations like this where the public is not addressed and closed out. But we're here today to talk about the chief executive of $100 million plus department of our city. A department that literally can exercise life and death over our community. And unfortunately, over the past 2 years, we've been reminded with that by the tragic killings of Jayson and Corbin Cooper. Our ask is simple. And our ask today that we make today is not an indictment on any of the candidates, but an effort to restore some transparency to what has been an opaque process and an opaque search. We ask the mayor to host an open forum, make it in the evening, so people can get to it, where these 3 finalists of one of the most important and the largest departments in our city can share their perspectives and their vision for our department. That they can share their plan to get rid of racism within our department. They can share their plan for how they will engage the community. And they can share their plan on how they are going to slow down this ballooning budget and overtime of our police department. This, again, is an opportunity that we urge the mayor to take, and we urge the finalists to take, to restore some faith and some trust in our government and in our police department, which is in dire need of it. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and let's raise our voices. Let's keep raising our voices.
Next up is Reverend Cass Shaw, President of Council of Churches of Greater Bridgeport. Thanks.
I join with Bridgeport Generation Now and all my friends and colleagues here with me and the others in the community to call on Mayor Gannon to have this open forum and allow us to have an opportunity to hear from the 3 finalists, to ask them questions and to engage them in dialogue. As Kyle said, this is an incredibly important position. And there are cities and towns all over the United States which have learned the hard way and too late how critically important it is to build trust between the community and the police department. How critically important it is to have community policing be a priority, to have racial sensitivity training and de-escalation training be the very best possible training for our officers, for their protection and for the protection of the community. It's been said lately that those of us who are concerned should be dismissed because they're worried that our only aim is to cast aspersions on one or more of the candidates. That couldn't be farther from the truth. What we want is to continue to build trust with the current police chief, Chief Perez, and with him if he becomes their permanent chief, or the other candidates if they do. We want to have a dialogue. We need to have a conversation, and the community's voice has to be heard. It's the only way that we can become and can stay a city that is proactive in engaging in ways that allow us to be healthy and just and clear, a place where Black and brown young men don't have to be afraid. So I call upon the mayor to open up this process, to listen to the community, and to allow the conversation to be one which builds all of us up. Thank you.
And next up is Casey Perkins. She is from Justice for Jayson, showing up for racial justice fair
Hi, I'm Casey. I'm part of the coalition seeking justice for Jayson and other victims of police brutality in Bridgeport and throughout the state. On May 9th, 2017, the community of Bridgeport lost 15-year-old Jayson, who was a brother, a son, a friend, a student, a rapper, an artist, a child with his whole life ahead of him. Due to the aggressive actions of Bridgeport police officers, and this is a pattern that has remained true throughout the department. We see systemically officers committing racist, violent acts, acts of domestic violence, sexual assaults, covering up text messages, and this is a failure in large part in leadership. We are calling with Bridgeport Generation Now and other organizations here for a transparent process where the community voices are heard. Community calling for de-escalation should not be met with calls for body shields and preventing the public from seeing violent acts within the department. And we want community voices heard and represented in this police chief search to bring a just an accountable department to Bridgeport.
And our next speaker is David McGuire. He's the Executive Director of the ACLU of Connecticut.
I want to thank all the advocates in Bridgeport Generation Now for standing up and speaking out so loudly. It's without a doubt clear that this process has been secretive, undemocratic, and deeply disrespectful of the people of Bridgeport here. We're calling on Mayor Gannon to change the process right now and open it up so there's meaningful input from people that live here. Democracy only works if the public is served and listened to. In particular, police departments need to govern and police the way the community wants to be policed. And if the public has no say in the voice of the next executive of that department, you know that that mandate won't be met. Unfortunately, the police here in Bridgeport have made some tragic mistakes over the last several years, and there needs to be a change from the top as well as from the bottom. And this is a golden opportunity for the public to be engaged in this process and have a role in rebuilding a stronger Bridgeport. Unfortunately, what we've seen is they've gone back to their ways of secrecy and trying to avoid any scrutiny. So we again call on Mayor Gannon to include the public in this process and make sure that everyone's civil rights and civil liberties are respected. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Pete Spain, City Council Representative, 130th District.
Hey, good evening. I'm Pete Spain, and I'm glad to be here. And thanks very much to Callie Heilman and the entire Bridgeport Generation Now community for leading on this. I'm honored to be part of this effort. And since May, I've been focused on the police chief search because of how important this is for our city and for our citizens, including the approximately 14,000 that I represent on the Bridgeport City Council, along with Langan, right there, and Maria. Nice to see you. The Umbrano Picciano. I went to two pretty well-attended public meetings back in May, and some of you were there as well, with the search consultant hired for this important task. And I shared many questions for police chief candidates that I thought she could pass on to them. What is your vision for this city was one of my questions. Another one was, what would you like to change about the union contract? How? What things would you try to change? Is seniority always the #1 factor? And I've also asked them, have you called our non-emergency call center recently? What was your experience like? Do you like those call center operators? Do you think they take pride in the work they do? If they don't, how would you change that as our next police chief? So I was thanked for the questions, and that was that. I had no responses or ideas provided in an exchange. And then I've learned nothing about the police chief search since then until this week reading the Connecticut Post. I really would have liked at least one informative response to my many queries since May on where we were with the police chief search. I think that's important. I also would have really liked to see community leaders brought into the candidate review process early on, as was promised in May. Now, all that aside now, the mayor and the administration so far have done some good things in the process, to put a positive light on it. They've included an executive search committee of outside independent professionals, including respected and highly educated police chiefs from Hartford and Yale University, okay? The Gannon administration also this week announced the names and the current positions of the 3 finalists. So I do respect that the mayor is the ultimate decider on who becomes our next police chief. And in no way do I see this as an adversarial situation at all. I think we're in the home stretch of a professional hiring process for our city. And I think it's the right thing to do to include the community, especially now. And nationally, it seems that this is the best practice for police chief searches when you look at many cities that have recently done what we're now trying to do. So today, I call on Mayor Gannon to do 3 specific things to help lead us through this efficiently and effectively. First, release to the public the 3 finalists' resumes, professional recommendations, and all of their written answers to test questions in this process. Second, allow for at least 30 minutes, minimal 30 minutes, in which each of the 3 finalists will separately meet with a predefined group of at least 6 nonpartisan community group representatives. For example, the Council of Churches, Connect, Bridgeport Gen Now, Bridgeport NAACP, Greater Bridgeport Latino Network, Indivisible CT4. That's the minimal. If you want to open it up to more groups or to all citizens, even better. At the very least, there'll be 3 separate meetings, at least 30 minutes long, so that's just 90 minutes, okay? Finally, the third thing I'm asking you, Mr. Mayor, is for at least 30 minutes of your own time. Go meet with the group of community leaders or the public and hear their thoughts on the finalists. Listen and learn from them. All told, I'm asking for 2 hours. 2 focused hours to bring this many months journey to a productive ending with some respect for the public. So if we don't do that, I fear that we'll risk failing to inform the finalists of our perspective. What is our community's perspective and expectations of our next police chief? Which is something I think the next police chief really could use to go forward in the best way to serve all of us. If we don't do that, then we're also showing too little respect for our public. So please, Mr. Ganem, set aside the time to engage community leaders on this and to allow them to help you. Do it some Saturday morning, some Sunday afternoon, some weeknight. Soon, do it soon. This is too important a decision for all of us to just cut out the public at this critical juncture. You will benefit from the wise considerations, unique perspectives, and the creativity of your citizens. Our next police chief will benefit, and so will we all. Thank you.
And next up is Maria Viggiano. She is our City Council representative from the 136th District.
I didn't RSVP for this event because I've been traveling. I was in Texas all week for work. But I'm here today because while I was away, I was keeping track of the news and what's been going on with our search. I'm a little concerned because I think that we could have much more dialogue in this process, and I'm here to call for that. As you all know, the mayor has the power through the charter to make the majority of the decisions in this process. However, we also know that the mayor has made a commitment to make this process open and transparent and community-driven. So this gathering here, I see it not as an attack on the mayor. It's not an attack on Chief Perez. This is a call to action amongst the community to say we want to be heard and to say that we want a part of this process, and to call on Mayor Ganem to fulfill that commitment that he's made, to say that this will be a community-driven process, this will be open and transparent, and to really call for that as a community, to say we want to be heard. So thank you guys all for coming, and you have my support. I hope that there are more forums, more opportunities for the community to engage with these finalists and to continue to be part of this process, because as we all know, and I know as someone who ran for office last year, the community is hungry for a better relationship with the police, and this is the first step in that. So let's get this right.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone, for coming and speaking. Everything that was said, I will sum up in a statement from Bridgeport Generation Now. And we certainly echo everything that was said here. This is not about personality or personal attacks. This is about a process. It's about a process that we deserve here in Bridgeport. And the mayor explicitly said when he was given a second chance that he would have an open and transparent government. He said that he would have an Office of Public Integrity. And so we are here today to call on him to do that, to demand that he stand by his word, because we deserved to have an open and transparent government. We deserve to have an open and transparent police chief search. As things currently stand in the Bridgeport Police Department, real lives have been lost. Nationally and locally, policing is in a state of crisis. Racism and misconduct in the department is on full display. We are out of compliance with our state's racial profiling law. Police overtime is out of control. Officers have been caught on video assaulting people. And our current interim chief himself is implicated in an absentee ballot fraud scheme that made its way to the Connecticut Supreme Court. The Bridgeport Police Department is one of the largest and fastest growing items in our budget, and it's taking up more and more of our resources. That is why this is important. The residents of Bridgeport know that we deserve leadership that takes all of our lives, our concerns, and our safety seriously. From the very beginning, the police chief search process seemed questionable. In May, the city brought in a consultant who held closed-door meetings with people pre-selected by Ganem's office. It was only after public pressure by this coalition and the press that Mayor Ganem arranged for 2 public meetings. During these meetings, the consultant said that her job was to take what she learned, marry it with the needs of the administration, draft a job description, publish it, and screen candidates down to a list of finalists. Then, according to David Dunn, the city's personnel director, a 10-person selection committee comprised of community members would select 3 candidates for Ganem to review. Despite attempts from our organization, from city council members, we have not received any follow-up from Mr. Dunn. It is now October 26th, and there is still no public-facing community engagement. In September, Ganem's office told Hertz Media they would not release the names of the 10 people on the search committee. Only last week, we learned that Ganem's administration did not ever even convene a community-led search committee, scrapping that process for a 5-person professional panel. Again, the identities of these 5 people were a secret. And again, it was only after we published an op-ed in the Connecticut Post calling out the secrecy did the administration release the names of the panelists and the 3 finalists for the police chief search. So we have questions for Mr. Ganem, who said in an interview this week on News 12 that the search process is, quote, open and transparent every step of the way. Why the sudden changes in the police chief search process? Why was the community shut out? Why were community groups, leaders, and elected officials actively working on police accountability and reform not informed of the change in process? How is it possible for the professional panel to conduct 7 high-level interviews all in one day? What criteria did they use to make their decision? How much money did it cost to pay the consultant and the professional panel? Sudden, unexplained changes and secrecy is not the behavior of an open and transparent government. There always was and still is a better way to do this, one that is rooted in good governance and professionalism. Paying lip service to an open and transparent process does not make it so. We need real substantive action. We, the people of Bridgeport, require more. Mayor Ganem has the opportunity to make this right. He could start the police chief search over. He could follow models set by other progressive cities truly interested in 21st century policing. He could hold public meetings in all 10 council districts to get meaningful community input. He could convene a real search committee, appointing 10 community members without ties to the administration, including youth. We hope that Mayor Ganem chooses this path. But if he continues down the path we are already on, we stand resolute in our call for him to hold a public forum with all 3 finalists. The people of Bridgeport deserve to hear from these professional candidates about their vision, goals and policies for this key leadership position. Together, we can show respect for our people and the progress of Bridgeport. Thank you.